The railroad industry was instrumental in the development of the High Plains region. In fact, you'll still see many of the old depots still standing in cities and towns all over the Panhandle. But Pantex is another big employer that's crucial to the Amarillo area. And for nearly 3 decades, Pantex and the railroad teamed up on what was called the White Train to transport weapons to military sites across America. We're going to take a trip on the rails this morning and tell you the history of the partnership. That's in this morning's 806. For about 30 years, the Pantex White Train was considered the safest mode of transportation available, with the perfect track record according to Pantex. They were ordinary-looking trains, but they had some unique features that set them apart from regular rail cars, like the fact that the cars were painted white for most of their life, hence the name White Train. Cargo cars were placed between escort coaches, serving as residence for armed guards who kept a lookout on the cargo. Because the train chugged along at just 35 miles an hour, the 7-person crew spent weeks on the rails, on routes to places like Washington and South Carolina.
I had a locomotive engineer from the Santa Fe tell me he decided to ratchet up the throttle to go a little faster. And he said, before he knew it, he had this spotlight in his mirrors that was blinding him. So he slowed the speed back down to 35, and the spotlight went out. He said, they must have known how fast we were going. And the truth is, yes, in the escort coach, they had something to measure the speed of the train.
The escort coaches were portable living units and had everything needed for extended time away from home, like full-service kitchens, sleeping quarters, showers, and community areas. The crew worked 6-hour shifts 24 hours a day, traveling hundreds of miles with plenty of time spent riding the rails.
So when you see the rail cars, you'll see the mirrors on the side, and from inside, wherever you're sitting, you can always see a mirror out a window. And with those, they can ensure that there aren't any people trying to get on the train or anything like that.
According to Pantex, in the late 70s and early 80s, the White Train caught the ire of protesters. And even after the train was painted in new color schemes, it wasn't hard to spot, and protests still formed near the tracks. According to Pantex, in 1985, protesters in Washington at the Bangor Naval Base were arrested for trespassing and conspiracy. They were released, and in 1987, the last official train rolled out of Pantex, as the government decided transport by rail was no longer efficient, so the White Train was retired.
By the early 1980s and the late 1970s, most of the other movement of the weapons and components were by semi-truck.
According to Pantex, in all of its years of operation, there was never a major accident involving a White Train, which shipped untold numbers of weapons all across the U.S. We're told there's still a couple of cars sitting on abandoned rails at Pantex. As for the general public, you can see what the White Train looked like at the Amarillo Railroad Museum, just east of the city. Now, we're told the cars from the White Train will all eventually be restored to their original condition, just like when they transported weapons made in the Texas Panhandle to America's military sites.